Okay, this is the upper die subassembly that we're going to do. It involves all of these parts. So make sure you've checked the list and you got all these parts. The ones that you did not make are on School Loop in the locker in the folder for the button maker. So let's start putting all these parts together. It's important to keep them in the right order. Put them as you put them together, so this lines up properly when you're making your full assembly. So I've got all my parts here. Now most of the parts are going to work off of this center support, but I'm going to put some of them together to begin with. Now to start with, I'm going to have this part sort of in the center. I've got that grounded. You can do a grounding by right-clicking on any part and click grounded. That means that part will not move, and it's good to have one part that doesn't, just to kind of help line things up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this lower die here, and I'm going to use the insert command to hook it underneath here. And so I'm going to use the constrain, insert, select that center hole and the center hole on the other, and let those pop together there. And apply. And now these should also line up. These holes should line up here. So I'm going to line those up with another insert. And this one's going to be a little bit touchier, so we have to be careful that we get just the right ones so that they line up. If you don't get the right ones, it's going to give you an error message. So try it till you get that and apply that. Alright. So at this point in time, now those two should be linked together, and the second one won't move at all and gives that little no symbol, the circle with the line through it, to tell me it's not going to move, and that's good. Now the other part, there's a screw that's going to fit into this hole here, and so we're going to use another insert to get that. Make sure you're lining up the right sections of things that actually are touching. If it's not lining up the way you want, you can change your solution. And I can see that that's sticking up just a little bit there. So that's not lining up perfectly the way I want it. So I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to try again. Use the insert and try a different approach to that. That lines up much better, more the way that I like it. So I'm going to apply that. Now the next one is a little bit trickier. We're going to line up these holes with the pins, the 3 pins on there. Those should line up evenly, and we want to make sure, check back on our Word document, how those line up. And it looks like this pin here is going to be sort of opposite the peg sticking out the other side, so we're looking to get the pins lined up that way. So let's see if we can't make that happen. So these pegs need to come out the other side of that. So I'm going to kind of slide that over and then take a look at this from a different angle. And I can see probably what I want to do is get this peg into that hole right there to get that to line up. So let's give that a try and see if that looks the way we want it to look. So I'm going to start with that, and it goes all the way up on there, so I'm going to get nice and close in here and pick that bit. I'm going to go ahead and click OK so I can pull it back a little bit and see if that seems to line up the way that I want it. As I bring it around, and that looks right. So I'm going to open it up so that I can see where I want, and I'm going to get this hole here to line up with that peg. Now I don't have to line up all 3, I just have to line up 2, because that will automatically make the others line up. So I'll make sure I get the right pieces of what I want here on the right spot, and it pops into place. If it doesn't pop into place, you probably missed, you didn't get right spot, you had the wrong type of solution, whatever it takes. Just try that till you get that into that spot. Okay, so the next one that we're going to put on here is we're going to put this bolt up through the inside here. And so again, this is just simply another insert, and so we're going to find the right level of things and line those up. It's looking pretty good there. Now, we're going to use this peg here in just a second. So to do that, I want to make sure a couple of things are in place. And so I'm going to do an insert on this inner rim here with this spacer holder that should be then lined up in that slot. And it is, so that's good. We'll go ahead and set that. Now it flipped it over, but that's okay. When I put the next constraint on it, the insert should work just fine. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to come up here to that constraint, inside right at the edge of that threaded hole, and that's going to sit on top of the bolt here. And so I'm going to look for that circle that's right on top of the die and pop that in place there. So this is looking pretty good so far. Now we're going to have one problem here, and this is a problem with the dimensions. It's not a whole lot we're going to do about that at this point in time. We're just going to live with it the way it is. This peg is supposed to go into this hole, and this larger peg is supposed to go in the larger middle hole. Unfortunately, those don't line up correctly, and instead of going back and changing it at this late date, we're just going to live with what we've got. So I'm going to constrain, and I want this bottom part of that peg there with the edge of that hole there, and go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to back it off, and we can see that what happens is that peg is a little bit off there. There was a measurement wrong somewhere, either in this peg where it was supposed to be or this hole where it was supposed to be. And since there's not much we can do about that, something went wrong there. I think I don't have an insert. If anything's moving weird on that, that is probably the case. So I'm going to undo this, undo one more, and I'm going to try that again. Make sure that I have an insert, get that hole, and this hole. Didn't line up the way I wanted it, so I'm going to switch my solution, and that looks better. So let me go back up and check to see if it lined up. Yep, lined up there. And so I'm going to sort of scoot it into place so that that peg is about centered there, because that'll be important for when we assemble the total full piece together. We've only got a couple pieces left on this. I'm going to use insert again on the spring, get one of the circles at corners on that spring, and come up and do it around the edge there. Line that up, apply, and then we have this retaining pin. I'm going to check my drawing to see where that goes, and that should go in this top little hole up here. So I'm going to make sure it goes in that, and then I've got things lined up that way. There's that top hole, so I'm going to do that with this one. Now this one's going to be a little bit different, because as I line that up, even if I switch the solution, it's not going exactly the way I want. So I need a little bit of an offset here. I'm going to try 1/4 of an inch. And it looks like it's going the wrong direction, and it's also not going too much. So I'm going to make this a negative 1/2 inch and see if that does it. That looks like too much now. So let's go back to the 1/4 inch negative. That looks about where we want it. So about that spacing on that, and okay. Now I have the full upper die in place, and so we're going to go ahead and save that as the upper die subassembly, and we're all set.